Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
Good afternoon, folks. Thanks for tuning back in to Twisted Tales. Now, today's story's got 4 little parts, and it's just some ghost stories from back home, so there's always ghost stories anywhere you go, but the Maritime seems to be a little bit more detailed on that, right? Like, there's always some kind of story, Like, you can go have a beer with anybody, and, you get talking, and there's always some kind of crazy ghost story that comes up, so I figured I'd let you guys know about a few of them. So I'll bring some up in a moment. This tale I'm going to talk about the Frost Park Ghost. Now, Frost Park is a lovely little spot for rest and relaxation. Lots of people from back home visit this awesome little spot, and it's a great time for outdoor events. But the early days, roughly the 1860s, the early settlers used this as a burial ground. Now, around 1859, the town was growing, the population kicked it up a notch, and the higher-ups decided that it was no longer acceptable to bury the dead smack dead in the middle of town. Located at 410 Main Street, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, which occupies roughly 1.5 acres of land. This resides on the west side of the main street in the downtown district. So one day, a man named Tom Surratt was taking a little jaunt around the park. Tom happened to be very superstitious, and he claimed that on more than one occasion, he met up with a ghost. Now, the ghost was around 70 years old. He wore a heavy coat with a little smaller one on underneath, a brown hat, and he smoked a tobacco pipe. The ghost asked Mr. Surratt if he was familiar with the Tuscan Islands, and he actually was. And he began to tell a little story of a treasure worth about $1 million, which had been buried on the island. So quickly as the convo picked up, the ghost told Surratt that he'd help him locate the treasure, and he provided him with directions. So when Surratt set out to locate the treasure, strange things would begin to happen, like trees falling down right beside him, his provisions would go missing, and a red and white dog was seen roaming the island, with unexplained reasons on how he got in there in the first place. On another trip back to the island, Surratt actually brought his son with him, and both would see unexplained things, like 300 or more crows flying around on a particular tree. Now the tree had a hole in it, so Surratt and son, they tried to shove a pole down there at the base of it, but they had trouble reaching the bottom, almost as if it was bottomless. Now the two would return home empty-handed, but with a new knowledge of eerie and ghostly encounters. So that's one little tale, and I'll move on to the next one. Now this story also resides in Frost Park. So August 2002, a lady named Teresa Babin was on her way through the park on her lunch break. She had a camera with her and decided to snap a few pictures. And there's like wonderful photos of Frost Park, like the fountain and some trees and just lovely scenery, right? And she took that with her Olympus 3.2 camera. Now, upon reviewing the photos, a little later on that she noticed that something was out of the ordinary. It looked to her that a picture that she had took had a man in it, and he wore different period clothing. Kind of looked like he was hiding behind the shrubbery. And she swore up and down that the man was not in the frame when she took the picture originally. And she's not the only one who noticed the discrepancies in the photos around Frost Park. Like, a few other noticed blurry and weird images in the photos after taking them. Another man had noticed the image of what looked like a man walking down the street, when originally it was just a picture of the street itself, around a couple buildings. But, there was nothing there when he took the picture, and it looked like a blurred image inside the photo afterwards. So, if you're ever up for a beautiful visit in this well-maintained park, bring your camera with you and see what happens. Because you never know what you're going to find in your camera roll, right? Now this story is going to reside around Peggy's Cove, and it's called The Lady in Blue. So, this story is also from around home. Now, Peggy's Cove is an amazingly popular tourist attraction, surrounded by blue ocean and a huge lighthouse. Now, legend has it that Peggy's Cove had been named after one survivor of a schooner that kind of sank in the 1800s. The girl's name was Margaret, and she had been taken in by one of the local families. The townsfolk had nicknamed her Peggy, or Peggy of the Cove. She actually married a local fisherman before moving to North Dakota, so this is where the name Peggy's Cove had originally came from. Now later on, a woman traveling from Europe over to Canada, she came in search of a better life, and she wanted to better herself and her two children's lives. Although the young lady didn't have enough money to bring her children with her at that time, she actually planned to get a job to earn enough income to be reunited with them. And after they got settled into Peggy's Cove a little bit, she met a man, and he treated her very well. The two eventually became married. And one day the lady was sitting on the rocks over by Peggy's Cove. She missed her children something fierce, and her husband found her up there and noticed she was feeling a little blue. So he joined her, and they conversed for a bit. And eventually he started to cheer her up by singing and dancing on the rocks. And as her husband started dancing, he slipped on the rocks and fell over the cliffside onto the rocks below, killing him on impact. Later he was found by the locals, but there was no signs of the young woman. Some say she felt responsible for his death and eventually took her own life and jumped into the ocean. Now, as time went on, people eventually, they seen a lady in blue standing on the rocky cliff above the ocean. Now, she looks like she's about to jump in the water, but when people try to get up and close to help her, she actually disappears. And it just seems like she's living that tragic day over and over. And, there's also been, a number of deaths through the history of Peggy's Cove as well. Mostly from people getting too close to the waves and being sucked in the water, as there's, no railing or anything around the lighthouse. And there's also the Swiss Air disaster that happened in September of 1999. This next tale, just a little short tale about Citadel Hill. Now, Citadel Hill is a beautiful place and an amazing spot to hang out on a sunny day. Halifax is pretty much a city on the sea, and a large hill overlooking the harbor, which actually led to the British military to found the town in 1749. It was actually one of the first buildings to be constructed, and would be a wooden guardhouse on top of that hill. And eventually, it would be named Citadel Hill. Now, the locals are said to often debate that Citadel Hill is haunted by several supernatural spirits, as, it's one of most Canada's oldest historical sites, with a few eerie tales around the area. Now, one tale told is about a soldier who had been murdered in cold blood and thrown down a well. His remains were actually found hundreds of years later. Stories from security guards also come into play. One about a gray lady who walks the building with a faint smell of roses that she leaves behind, and she's wearing 19th century clothing. Also, a guard that overlooked the second floor recollects seeing a woman in a white dress turn a corner of the building and then disappear. Now, she is believed to be a woman by the name of Cassie Allen, a lady engaged to a soldier stationed at the hill. Her wedding day was supposed to be November 14th, 1900. Now, this poor girl waited at the altar for her beloved groom, but he never showed. And as a carriage ripped up to Citadel Hill to pick up the groom, it was found out by a guard that he actually shot himself. So I guess the guy had some demons from his past that he couldn't escape. And the carriage driver broke the news to the bride, who then became skeptical and beyond belief of the news. Some say that it's her spirit who roams the grounds, looking for her fiancé. My last little tale here, I'll talk about Alexander Keith's Brewery, located on 1496 Lower Water Street in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Alexander Keith purchased a local brewery after he immigrated to Halifax, and he was a man well known to craft beer. It was my favorite beer when I was drinking, and I'd love one, I'll tell you that. But the guy built his home on Hollis Street, and it still exists today. And he even built tunnels from his home to the brewery, just so he could visit for inspections and the operating aspects of all that. He was a man well known for his hospitality and business aspects, also his community activities. He eventually died at the age of 78 years old, buried in a local Camp Hill cemetery. Now, some believe his spirit still roams the tunnels and the hallways of the brewery. He was a local hero in Nova Scotia, and he was actually a local politician, and he served as mayor of Halifax about 3 times. Now, when people are going on the tour, some recall hearing footsteps in the halls of the tunnels, and nobody is around. Sometimes they're fast-paced, sometimes they're slow-paced. And some also hear the squeaking of a handcart, kind of pushing a huge keg of beer down the hallway. But that's not actually ghosts. That's actually me and my buddy Kirk when we're on a drunken adventure. So, the brewery staff believe that music actually seemed to trigger the ghosts. And one reporter recalls that there was a paranormal investigation going on, and one of the guys pulled out a guitar, and he started playing a traditional maritime tune. Now, nearby folk remember feeling the room turn chilling cold, and the EMF meters went off the charts. And kind of a scary little experience, but nobody really thought much of it, right? It kind of left more questions than answers. So, just go check it out if you're ever back in Halifax. There's lots of spots to go, restaurants, and you'll definitely hear some tales if you talk to the town folk. I mean, everybody's wicked awesome back there. Everybody's so nice, and it's a place I really miss. This is a great city. But, I mean, you'll definitely hear a story or 3 anyway. So with that, folks, I mean, Halifax is just full of history. Good, bad, everything in between. And it's, like I said, it's a spot I surely miss. Got a lot of friends back there, and, haven't seen them in years. But here I am stuck in the fucking prairie land, so gotta love that. And with that, there's no place like home, folks. So I thank you for tuning back into Twisted Tales. Thanks for sending me emails on tales and shit to do, and I'll get to doing them. And I really love you guys for everything you guys do. So I appreciate you guys all. Have yourself a good work week. Thanks for tuning back in.
Twisted Tales.